Tonight we do start a new series, a psalm study. I told you we do a psalm study every single year, and this year is no different. Our psalm this year is Psalm 46. Now, before we get into verse 1 tonight, I want to say a few things as a way of introduction to this psalm. First, remember it's a psalm. The word psalm means psalm. Here's what that means. You say, well, why does that matter? Why is it important that we understand it's a psalm? Here's why. Okay? This has been written to make us think, but it has also been written to make us feel. Okay? Song makes us feel things. That's why I can hear a song from the 90s and I'm like right back in like 9th and 10th grade. Like immediately I'm right back in 9th and 10th grade. And that is because songs make us feel. Now, what's so great about the songs in the Word of God is that they make us think first, and if we're thinking rightly, then we feel. Another thing that I want us to see is that this psalm is called Luther's Psalm. Okay? And the reason why it's called that is because Martin Luther, okay, the great reformer of the 1500s, Martin Luther wrote his famous song, A Mighty Fortress. A mighty fortress is our God, a bulwark never. We're going to sing it before this series is over with. He got the theme of that song from this psalm. In fact, when he would be going through really difficult and hard times during the Reformation, he would grab a friend and he would say, let's go sing Psalm 46. And he would go and they would sing Psalm 46 to encourage them and to lift them up. It has become one of the most famous psalms in Christianity. And if you'll notice, I don't know if your digital copies will have this, but if you have a hard copy of the Bible, you'll notice it is broken up into 3 stanzas. Okay, 3 paragraphs, with each paragraph ending in the word Selah off to the right. And here's what the word Selah means. All right? It means stop and think. Contemplate. Okay? It's there so that when we are reading through this, we come to a moment where we got to stop and we got to think about what was just sung and what was just said. Okay? So you get 3 verses, Selah. Then you get verses 4 through 7, Selah. 8 through 11, Selah. And so here's what my plan is. My plan is to take each paragraph in 2 weeks. So we'll do this first paragraph, 1 through 3, tonight and tomorrow, or next week. And then we'll just take it 2 by 2 by 2, and we'll be done with this thing in 6 weeks. That's the plan. All right, let me reread verse 1 before I break down verse 1 and explain to you what verse 1 is actually talking about. Let me break this down. Now, let me read this before I break it down. Verse 1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. That would be a great verse for you to memorize. Be a great verse for you to have in your mind and in your heart, so that when you're going through something hard and difficult, immediately this verse can pop into your head and you can say, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Now the first point, all right, if you have your little paper that taking notes on, the first point is Yahweh is personal. I want to address the word God. Okay? God is our refuge and strength. Now, the entire focus of this psalm is God. He is our only source of help. You can try to go to other places for help, but you will never get what God is able to be and to bring. Now, I want to address who we're talking about when we say God. Because a lot of people, by the way, in America, over 90% of Americans say they believe in God. 90% of Americans say they believe in God. The problem is that they're not specific on who God is. Is God just some generic God up in the sky somewhere that we hope will take us to heaven when we die? Well, the Bible doesn't have this generic God. The Bible has a very specific God, the one true living God, and here's who he is. He is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob from the Old Testament. He is the God who revealed himself in the burning bush to Moses and gave his personal name, Yahweh. When Moses said, "Who am I? You're telling me to go to Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. Who am I supposed to say is sending me?" And God said, "You tell them Yahweh is sending you." That's the personal name of God. We're talking about the one who led Israel out of slavery in Egypt, parted the Red Sea, did all these wonders to deliver them, and brought them into the promised land of Canaan. So when the psalmist writes the word God, that's who he's thinking about. He is not thinking about an impersonal, generic God. He is thinking about the one true God of the universe who made himself known to the people of Israel. I want to read you Deuteronomy chapter 6. You don't have to turn there. Just listen carefully. I'll get there quicker than you will. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 13 and 14. Listen to this. "It is the Lord your God you shall fear." The word Lord is in all caps. Capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. That is the word Yahweh. It is the Lord, Yahweh your God, you shall fear. Him you shall serve, and by his name you shall swear. You shall not go after other gods, the gods of the people who are around you. Yahweh is making it very clear. I am the one true God. Don't go after false gods because you're worshiping something that doesn't exist. I am the one true God. Worship me. It's interesting to note that Orthodox Jews will not say the name Yahweh. They believe it is too holy and too personal, and they will not say the name Yahweh. They don't believe that they have the kind of relationship with God that allows them to speak to God personally. But we know that the Bible makes it clear that God does want a personal relationship with us. God doesn't want to stay removed for us. God has made it possible that we can have a personal relationship with him. So I can pray and say, "Oh Yahweh, thank you that you are my refuge and strength." That is why the psalmist says, "Our." God has personally given himself to us. Our God. God is our God. So this is not an abstract God, far away from a personal God, but he is a God that interacts with us every single day. Now, look at this word refuge. There's two things that this song says God does for us. All right? Here's a fact, guys. Listen to me. Here's a fact. You will go through trouble in this life. It is not a matter of if you go through trouble. It is when you go through trouble. Trouble is coming. Okay? I say this all the time. You are either about to head into a storm, you are in a storm, or you're just coming out of a storm. But one of those three is always true for everybody. You're either about to go into it, you're in it, or you're coming out. But trouble and storms are always there, and it says that God is going to be our help. Look at what it says. It says he is a very present help in trouble. God knows the trouble's coming. But when the trouble comes, I am a personal God who loves you, and so I'm going to be in your life helping you when the trouble comes. And I'm going to help you in two different ways. The first is with this word refuge. God is our refuge. Okay? It's the reason why I called our youth ministry Refuge, because of what this means. A refuge is a place where you go to get out of the storm. Okay? We call this place refuge because I know that a lot of your home lives are not what you want them to be. You don't have a father and mother in the home. You have maybe a father or a mother. Maybe you have a father and mother, but they're not Christian parents, so they're not leading you spiritually in the things of God. And so things are hard. Like we just prayed for Madison. Madison's going through a hard time. But you know what? When she comes into refuge, this should be a place where she can get out of the storm for an hour and a half. Every single week, she can get out of the storm. But this is just a picture of what God is for us. When I was 5 years old, my parents moved me to Wichita, Kansas for 1 year. I went to Wichita, Kansas, and while we were in Wichita, Kansas, they had the most snow ever in a recorded calendar year, the year we were there. And the most tornadoes. So we were there for 1 year. They had the most snow and the most tornadoes. In 1 day, 10 tornadoes in Wichita, Kansas. In 1 day. It was after church. Me and my buddy down the street. We're hanging out. It's 5 years old. We're doing a lot of things like coloring and playing with G.I. Joes. And all of a sudden, I look in the field past the end of our street, and when I look, I see the tornado coming down out of the sky. I actually, visually, with my eyeballs, see it myself. And the only thing I could think about was, get home. I jumped up, and as I started running down the street, the sirens started going off. I mean, it's coming. I'm living in Kansas. I'm thinking, I'm fixing to go to Oz. It's going to happen. I'm taking up and taking to Oz. It's going down. I run inside my house. My parents grab me and my sister. We run down in the basement because they have basements there. We run down in the basement, and the tornado comes through our neighborhood. But when it was all said and done, our screen door had been ripped off the back, and our swing set had been ripped up out of the ground and thrown against the tree. But we were safe. And do you know why we were safe? Because I got inside and I went in the basement. I got in a place that protected me from the storm. So the storm was there. The tornado was outside. But I didn't go through the tornado. I was in a basement protected from that storm. I was in a refuge. I was in a place while the storm was going on, I was safe. This is one way that God helps us when trouble is coming. There is times, listen to this, there is times when God simply protects us from the storm so that we're not affected by it. God simply protects us from the storm so we're not affected by it. Hey, any of you guys ever slept through a thunderstorm? Yeah. Listen, it's this idea. Listen, most of the time, God is my refuge, and I don't even know that He's a refuge at that moment. God is protecting me from stuff that He never lets even get to me. He's a refuge for me in that moment, and I don't even know it. It's like sleeping through a thunderstorm. Like you wake up and you're like, there was a storm. I didn't even know. How many times has God done that for us? Where God protects us from things happening to us. God is our refuge. I'm going to read you Psalm 91. This is another psalm. I'm going to read you Psalm 91 real quick. Listen to this, verses 1 through 6. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. He will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with His pinions, and under His wings you shall find refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and a buckler. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in darkness, nor the destruction that wastes at noonday. Why? Because it's not even going to mess with you. God won't even let it mess with you. There are times where the storm comes and God simply protects you from the storm. You don't go through it. Secondly, this leads us to the second thing this song says God is for us. There's other times when God does let the storm come. He does let the storm hit us. We have to go through it. So sometimes the storm doesn't mess with us. Other times, we're going to go right through the middle of the storm. That's why it says God is our strength. So God is our refuge so we don't go through the storm. He protects us from the storm. And He is our strength so that there are times when we have to go through the storm, but He strengthens us to make it. There are times when we need to be empowered by God to face the storm as it comes. I used to go snow skiing twice a year, every year, growing up. Every single year. And I got good, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. I did blacks and I did some double blacks. I was a good snow skier. I was young. I was a snow guy. And that's the only way I'm gonna put it. I did the snow thing with the skis. And one day I decided, right before lunch, and one day I decided, you know what? This is me and my buddy. Like, let's go up to the very, very top right before lunch. So we get on the lift, and it's the long lift that goes all the way up. So we're on the lift, and we're it takes you 10 minutes to get up there. We get at the very top, and we get off that thing, and a storm blows in. And I'm talking the wind. You could barely stand up. The wind was blowing so hard. And the snow, if you've ever been atop a mountain when the wind is just whipping around, it picks up the snow that's falling and the snow that's on the ground, and it whirls it at your face like little needles. Just it hurts so bad. And so me and my buddy were like, there's the little hut over there, the warming hut. They got, that's where they serve coffee and stuff. You can take a break. So we ski over there, and it is already packed full of people. You couldn't even get inside. I'm like, what are we going to do? We only had one option. Get the heck off the top of the mountain as fast as we could. We're going to have to just buckle down and ski through this thing downhill. Our lodge was at the bottom. So we both look at each other and we're like, okay, let's go. We pull our shirts up as far as we can so that we're trying to protect our face. But the only option we had was to go into that storm. There was no other choice. And there are times where God is going to put us through a storm, where we're going to have to face it. He's not going to protect us from it. We're going to have to go through the middle of the storm. However, He will be our strength when we do so. He will be our strength. He will empower us to make it through. Listen to Psalm 27. This is Psalm 27. I'm just going to read two verses from Psalm 27. When evildoers assail me to eat up my flesh and my adversaries and foes, it is they who will stumble and fall. Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war arise against me, yet I will be confident. Here, he's not saying, I'm not going to have to go to war. He's saying, the battle's coming, the fight's coming, the storm's coming, and I got to face it. But I will not fear, and I will be confident because God will strengthen me. Another thing I want us to see is that it says God is our very present help. This implies that God is always there to give the right assistance at the right time with the right thing. Whatever we need, whenever we need it, God is there. We can trust Him. We can count on Him to be there for us and to do for us what we need. If He knows it is not our time for us to go through a storm, He'll be our refuge. If He knows we need to go through the storm, then He will be our strength so that we can be confident in the midst of trouble. But whether we are protected from trouble or whether we go through trouble, the Lord will never leave us and He will always be for us what we need. Every single time. I don't care what it is you're going through at school, what it is you're going through at home, what it is you're going through with your friends. Listen, your work, your job, whatever it is, none of it do you have to worry whether or not God's going to give you what you need. He will. Now, the last thing I want us to understand is that the Bible makes it very clear that Jesus is the means by which God brings us this help. Jesus is the means by which God brings us this help. Jesus is our refuge and strength. Jesus, being God, brings this help to those who believe Him in a way that is glorious. Jesus was preaching in John chapter 6. And here's what He says. Anyone who comes to me, I will never cast them out. I will be their refuge. They will come to me and I will protect them and they'll never cast them out. They can come to me and in me for refuge. Jesus is our refuge from sin. He shields us from the ultimate penalty. What are the wages of sin? What does the Bible say? The wages of sin is what? death. Christians, listen to me. Jesus has forgiven us of our sin and died for our sin, so that the ultimate penalty of death is removed. We talked about this, right, when we were doing our Apostles' Creed study. One day this body's going to quit. It's going to go on the ground. My spirit's going to go be with the Lord, and when Jesus comes back to earth, my body's coming up out of the ground, united with my spirit, and I'm going to live on the earth forever and ever and ever with Jesus. Why? Because Jesus is my refuge. He is my shield from the penalty of sin, so that I can be right with God. But we still live in a fallen world, don't we? We live in a world with trouble. Trouble still exists because of sin, and from that we are not always protected. God does not always protect us from the consequences of sin. And that is why Jesus is our strength, that we may endure suffering. Christian, I need you to listen to me. Jesus didn't just say you might go through suffering. He promised you that you would. Listen to me, Christian. He promised that you would. So guess what you're going to need if suffering is coming for sure? You're going to need him to be your strength. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 9 through 10 says this. Paul, going through suffering, going through hardship. The Apostle Paul says this. He says he went to God and he asked God to deliver him, and God said, no, I'm not going to deliver you. You're going to have to deal with this suffering. And this is what Paul said. But God said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in your weakness. Therefore, Paul says, I will boast all the more gladly in my weakness, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then, I am content with weakness, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, he is strong. Christian, listen to me. Jesus promised that when you're in the middle of that storm and you're your weakest, when you're in that storm and you are at your weakest, he will be your strength. And you will make it through. Now, you may make it through crawling on your hands and knees. Like, you may be beaten and bloodied and exhausted and tired, but you will make it through. God will not abandon you in the middle of the storm. He will not do it. If he does, he's a liar. He is not God, and this is a waste of time. But God is faithful. That's why they write songs about him. He is our refuge and our strength and help in times of trouble. Do you know why that song that we sang, Psalm 46, was written by Shane and Shane? Do you know why Shane and Shane can write a song like that and it be full of such emotion? Because they've been through it. They've suffered. They've had hardships. And God has proven himself to be their strength when they need it. And they know that this comes through Jesus. So if you want for God to be your refuge and strength, this isn't just generic God. This is the personal God who gave his Son for us so that we may experience him as our refuge and strength. Listen, I have not suffered a lot in my life. I just haven't. Some of you guys have suffered way more than me. Way more than me. I was raised in a home with two Christian parents who loved me and loved the Lord. No one that I'm super, super close to has died at a young age. My grandparents have all died, but they lived long, good lives. Like, I haven't really, really suffered. But there have been times where things have been hard. I've shared with you guys before that I have an anxiety disorder. And there are times where my anxiety has gotten so out of control that I didn't know what the heck was going on, especially the first time that it happened. I didn't know what was going on. And the only thing I had that I could really cling to, because I'm going to tell you, in my mind, this is what was going to happen. My anxiety was so out of control, I thought, I'm going to lose my job. My wife's going to divorce me and take the kids, and she's going to leave. And I'm going to be left with nothing. Like that I was so like out of sorts mentally. Like that was really what I was thinking was going to end up happening. So the only thing I knew for sure, the only thing I could hold on to for sure, was that Jesus said he would be my refuge and strength. That's it. Like my wife may leave, the kids may go with her, like I may lose my job, I may have nothing. Like that's all a real thing going in my head. And the only thing that I could cling to was that Jesus was my refuge and strength. And let me tell you something. He proved it. And he'll prove it again and again and again, because the storm is coming. So you're either going in it, or you're in it, or you're coming out of it. But no matter what, he's going to be your refuge and he's going to be your strength.